Hello everyone, welcome to PW Gulf. So today is the time for the ultimate recap session of the chapter Mechanical Properties of Fluids. After solids, we come to fluids. First we study fluid statics, then we study fluid dynamics. In fluid statics, we consider fluids at rest, and in fluid dynamics, we consider fluids in motion. So let us start. In today's class, we'll be covering pressure. What is pressure? What is the pressure exerted by a liquid? Then Pascal's law and its applications. Then we'll be doing pressure exerted by a liquid column, equation of continuity. Before equation of continuity, we'll be doing the barometer, manometer, okay, Bernoulli's theorem and its application, velocity of efflux. Then we'll be going to viscosity, Stokes law, terminal speed, Poiseuille's formula, and after that we'll become to surface tension, surface energy, rise of liquid in a capillary, that is Ascent formula, and the different types of meniscus, angle of contact, etc, etc. We'll be covering the complete chapter. Okay, so let us start with the very first topic, which is pressure. Now what is pressure? If we exert a force on any surface normally to that surface, then pressure is equal to normal force by area. Okay, the pressure at any point on a surface is the thrust of force. Thrust is same as force acting normally per unit area around that point. Okay, so pressure is normal force by area. If force is acting at any angle, then only the perpendicular component will contribute to pressure, tangential component doesn't contribute to pressure. Okay, so pressure, it is a scalar quantity. Okay, pressure, it is a scalar quantity. If we want to write the SI unit of pressure, SI unit will be Pascal. Okay, and 1 Pascal is equal to 1 Newton per meter square. Okay, 1 Newton per meter square. If we want to write its dimensions, then the dimensions of pressure will be ml raised to the power minus 1 t raised to the power minus 2. Okay, ml raised to the power minus 1 t raised to the power minus 2. These are the dimensions of the pressure. There are other units of pressure. Other units of pressure are ATM, bar, torr, okay, mm of Hg, etc. All these are other units of pressure. Okay, so what is a fluid? Okay, first is, what is a fluid? Anything that can flow is called fluid. Okay, anything that has the ability to flow, anything that has the ability to flow, anything that can flow is called fluid. Okay, how many types of fluids? Liquids and gases are considered as fluids. Okay, so we have liquids and gases, both can flow, so liquid and gases are fluids. In this particular chapter, we will be talking about liquids only. We will talk about gases in the chapter thermodynamics and kinetic theory of gases. Okay, so for now we'll be considering liquids. We just now studied pressure. We know that liquid also exerts pressure. Okay, any liquid at rest exerts pressure normal to the surface. Okay, exerts pressure normal to the surface. Okay, liquid always exerts pressure normal to the surface because liquid, now see, we are saying exerts pressure, or we can also say it like exerts force due to pressure. Okay, exerts force due to pressure, exerts force normal to the surface. Now this force comes due to pressure exerted by a fluid. Okay, so every fluid exerts pressure, and the force exerted by the fluid is normal to the surface, and this is called liquid thrust. Okay, This force is called liquid thrust. The force exerted by the liquid normally on the surface is called liquid thrust. Okay, it always exerts force normally to the surface. Now let us come to density. What is density of any material? It is the mass per unit volume is called density, and if it is also a scalar quantity, and if we want to write its SI unit, that will be kg per meter cube. CGS unit will be gram per centimeter cube. Okay, and if we want to write its dimensions will come out to be ml raised to the power minus 3. Okay, this is density. Now there is a density of a mixture. Suppose we have two miscible liquids. Okay, if there are two miscible liquids. What are miscible liquids? That can be completely mixed together. Okay, if we have two miscible liquids, miscible liquids are having density ρ1 and volume V1, first liquid. Second liquid is having density ρ2 and volume V2. So if we want to find the average density of the mixture, it will be total mass divided by total volume. We can write mass as density into volume. So mass of first liquid will be ρ1 V1, second liquid will be ρ2 V2. So from here our average density will come out to be ρ1 V1 plus ρ2 V2 divided by V1 plus V2. Okay, V1 plus V2, this will be our average density. This is how we can find average density, by applying total mass divided by total volume. If both V1 and V2 are equal, then rho average will be equal to ρ1 plus ρ2 by 2. Then rho average will be, see, simply put V1 V2 equal to V, it will get cancelled out. We will get ρ1 plus ρ2 by 2. If we measure the density of any substance with respect to the density of other substance, that is called relative density. This is also called specific gravity. Okay, this is also called specific gravity. Now it is the ratio of the density of the material to the density of water at 4 degrees Celsius. Okay, relative density is simply density of substance divided by density of water at 4 degrees Celsius. As it is the ratio of two same quantities, it has no units and dimensions. Okay, as it is the ratio of two similar quantity, it is having no units and dimensions. Okay, see next, Pascal's law. Now I just told you that pressure is exerted by a liquid. Liquid also exerts a pressure on the base of the container, wall of the container, and the force will always be normal to the surface. If we dip any substance in the liquid, then it will exert a force normally on the each surface of the substance. Okay, so Pascal's law says that if we have any fluid at rest, okay, if we have any fluid at rest, suppose we have suppose we have a fluid enclosed in a container having 4 openings. Okay, suppose we have a fluid contained in a container having 4 openings. There are 4 pistons. This piston is having area of cross section A, this is having area of cross section 2A, this is having area of cross section A by 2, and this is also having area of cross section A. Okay, these are the area of cross section of all the 4 pistons. Now if I exert an extra pressure, extra force on this piston 1. Okay, if I exert an extra force, that is extra pressure, what will be my pressure exerted over here? So extra pressure exerted on piston will be F by A. Now Pascal's law says that if we exert extra pressure at any one point of the fluid, this pressure is equally transmitted to all the points of the fluid. Okay, this pressure is equally transmitted to all the points of the fluid. That is, if we want to measure the pressure over here, okay, so here will also pressure will be P, here will also pressure will be P, here will also pressure will be P. This pressure is equally transmitted, this pressure is equally transmitted to every part of the fluid. Okay, now if we want to calculate force over here, okay, area is same, pressure is same, so we can calculate force as pressure into area. Substitute pressure as F by A. Now force will be F. Okay, a F force will be acting outwards. Okay, F force will be present over here. If we want to calculate force over here, as area is reduced by half, force will also reduce by half. Okay, area is reduced by half, so force will also reduce by half. See, pressure is same, so P should be equal to F prime divided by A by 2. Now P is equal to F by A, so from here we will get 2F prime by A. A and A gets cancelled, F prime will be F by 2. Okay, to keep the pressure same, force will reduce or change accordingly. Okay, but the pressure is equally transmitted to every part of the fluid, and here force will be 2F because area is large, so force will also be 2F. This is Pascal's law. The extra pressure exerted at any point on an enclosed liquid is transmitted equally in all directions. Okay, we are having an enclosed liquid. If we exert any extra pressure on any one point of the liquid, it is equally transmitted in all direction. This is Pascal's law. It also says that pressure in a fluid at rest is same at all the points if they are at the same height. Okay, if fluid is at rest, pressure at all points which are at the same height will be same. Let us do the applications of Pascal's law. First application is hydraulic lift. Now hydraulic lift is used to lift very heavy objects like this. In this particular case we have a car. Hydraulic lift consists of two pistons, okay, two cylinders. Basically it consists of two cylinders and two pistons are put on the cylinders. In between there is a fluid. Okay, a fluid is put in the two cylinders and two pistons are placed above them. This two cylinders are having different area of cross section. So let us take that this cylinder is having area of cross section A1. This cylinder is having area of cross section A2. Okay. Now if we want to lift the car, we will apply a F force. Okay. We will apply a F force on this piston. Okay. We will apply a small F force, or let us take, we applied a small F force on this piston. Smaller piston, we applied some small F force on this piston. What will happen if liquid is compressed on this side? Second piston will go up. Okay, there will be a capital F force exerted on the second piston and it will lift upwards. Now by Pascal's law we know that pressure, extra pressure exerted at any one point of the fluid is transmitted equally. So pressure at here will be P, pressure at here will be P. So P will be equal to P. Pressure on both the pistons will be equal. So pressure on smaller piston will be small f by A1 and pressure on larger piston will be capital F by A2. Now applying a small f force, how much force we get on the other side? F is equal to A2 by A1. Okay, F is equal to A2 by A1 times small f. A2 is larger than A1. What we did is we applied a small force F and in return we get a capital F force which is larger than the smaller force. Okay, so by applying a small force we can lift heavy objects This is hydraulic lift. Okay, as A2 is greater than A1, therefore capital F will be greater than small f. Hence we can lift up heavy objects. This is Pascal's law application, hydraulic lift. Next come the second application, hydraulic brakes. Now what is hydraulic brakes? In hydraulic brakes, the brake paddle is connected to a master cylinder by a lever system. Okay, so as we press the brake, okay, as we press the brake, the piston P of the master cylinder moves inwards. Okay, piston P moves inwards. Piston P of the master cylinder moves inwards. If piston P is moving inwards, pressure is exerted at one point of the fluid, which is transmitted equally at every point. Now this master cylinder is connected to the two pistons of wheel cylinder P1 and P2, okay, and to the other wheel also. Now this by a tube T which is containing some liquid. Pressure is exerted at one point of the liquid. It will be transmitted equally at other points. Okay, if liquid goes like this, it will exert a pressure like outwards on P1 and P2 piston. Okay, so piston P1 and P2 will move outwards. Okay, piston P1 and P2, they will move outwards. If they are moving outwards, what will happen? These brake shoes, see, if they move outwards, these brake shoe will touch the rim. Okay, these brake shoe come in contact with the rim. Okay, these brake shoes come in contact with the rim and there is a retarding force, therefore wheel will stop. Okay, therefore wheel will stop. Okay, wheel stops. Now as we release the brakes, there is a spring S which will compress and brake shoe will come to its original position. Okay, this pressure is left out, so what will happen? Piston will move inwards due to the spring. It will come to back its normal position and we will get a normal wheel. Okay, so this is how hydraulic brakes work. See next, pressure exerted due to a liquid column. Okay, now suppose we have a liquid in a container. Okay, rho is my density of the liquid. Rho is the density of liquid. Now consider 2 points P1 and P2 in the liquid which are separated by some h distance. Okay, which are separated by some h distance. Now pressure at any point in the liquid is due to the weight of the liquid column above it. Okay, if we want to find pressure at this point, this whole liquid column is exerting its weight downwards. Due to this weight, it will exert some pressure at this point. So P2 minus P1, okay, the difference in pressure at these 2 points is equal to rho GH. Okay, P2 minus P1 will be equal to rho GH, or we can write it as P2 is equal to P1 plus rho GH. Okay, the difference between the pressures is equal to rho GH, or we can say that P2 is equal to pressure at P1 plus the pressure due to this liquid column, that is rho GH. Okay, so rho GH is the pressure exerted by a liquid column of height h. Okay, if we have a liquid of density rho and its column is having a height h, pressure due to this liquid column is rho GH. Now from this we can conclude that pressure is same at same horizontal level in the same liquid. Okay, pressure at all the points Pressure at all the points which are at the same horizontal level in the same liquid. Pressure at all such points will be same. Okay, pressure at all such points will be same. Now if we take any point on the surface of this, liquid, what will happen? The atmospheric column above it is exerting a pressure on this. So pressure at this point is due to the atmosphere, and this pressure is called atmospheric pressure. Okay, so the pressure exerted by atmosphere is called atmospheric pressure. Now atmospheric pressure is equal to 1.013 into 10 raised to the power 5 pascals. Okay, this is equal to 1.013 into 10 raised to the power 5 pascals. Atmospheric pressure is also equal to 1 atm. Okay, this 1.013 into 10 raised to the power 5 is also equal to 1 atm. Now what is the gauge pressure? Okay, what is the gauge pressure? See, in this previous diagram only, if we have a liquid column, okay, in which we are having a liquid of density rho, okay, a liquid of density rho is filled in it, we consider a point at a height h below the surface. Okay, so consider 2 points A and B. Okay, pressure at A will be equal to atmospheric pressure. Okay, pressure at A will be equal to atmospheric pressure. If we want to write pressure at B, it will be equal to pressure at A, that is atmospheric pressure plus the pressure due to liquid column. So this simply the pressure due to liquid column, this is called gauge pressure. Okay, PB minus P atmospheric rho GH, this pressure is called gauge pressure. Okay, this pressure is called gauge pressure. The total pressure at point B is called absolute pressure. The total pressure at point B is called absolute pressure, and the pressure only due to the liquid column. Okay, if we take P atmospheric as reference, so the difference in the absolute pressure minus the atmospheric pressure, that is pressure due to this liquid column only, this is called gauge pressure. Okay, this is called gauge pressure. Now let us see what is a mercury barometer. This was developed by Torricelli. What he did is, he took a clean glass tube and filled it completely with mercury up to the brim. Okay, filled it completely with mercury up to the brim. He also take mercury in a dish, closed the glass tube with the thumb and inverted the glass tube into the dish plate and then released the thumb. Okay, he closed the, this was the dish plate, he closed the glass tube with the thumb, then inverted the glass tube into the dish plate and released the thumb. So what happened? The level in the glass tube which was all filled reduced to some height. Okay, the level in a glass tube, earlier it was completely filled with mercury, now the mercury came a little downward, it came up to a height of 760 millimeters. Okay, sorry, it comes to a height of 760 millimeters. Now see, pressure, if we want to measure pressure at these 2 points, okay, let us take 2 points on this. This is point P1 and this is point P2. Now because these 2 points are at the same height, okay, because these 2 points are at the same height in the mercury, so P1 must be equal to P2. What is P1? Pressure at 1, that is P atmospheric. Okay, atmosphere is putting pressure over here, so pressure at P1 will be P atmospheric. Pressure at P2 will be, now here vacuum is created, so it will be, pressure at this point will be 0. Okay, because vacuum is created, pressure at this point will be 0. Okay, P will be 0 over here. Here we have point P1, here we have point 2. Pressure at P1 and P2. Now see, P2 will be equal to 0 plus rho GH. So from here we will get pressure is equal to rho GH. If we substitute the height as 760 millimeters, rho 13.6 into 10 raised power 3, we get this atmospheric pressure. Okay, from here we found out the atmospheric pressure. Density of mercury is 13.6. So density is 13.6 into 10 raised to the power 3 kg per meter cube. G value is 9.8 meter per second square, and value of height we measured as 760 into 10 raised to the power minus 3 meter. So if we calculate it from here, we will get the atmospheric pressure. Okay, this is how we measure atmospheric pressure using mercury barometer. Next is manometer, open tube manometer. It is a device which is used to measure the pressure of a gas in an enclosed vessel. Suppose we have a gas in an enclosed vessel and the pressure due to this gas is P. So pressure at this point will be P. Pressure due to the gas is P. So pressure at this point will be P. If we want to measure pressure at this point, it will be P, atmospheric. Now we consider 2 points at the same height. One is this point and the other is this point. Okay, point number 2. We can take any liquid in this tube, or like just we have taken liquid mercury. So pressure at 1 and 2 will be equal, because pressure at any 2 points at the same horizontal level in the same liquid is same. P1 will be equal to P2. P1 is equal to P, that is pressure due to the gas. What is P2? P2 is P atmospheric plus the pressure due to this H height column of the mercury. So P plus rho GH. Okay, earlier in the U tube, mercury level was equal. When we connected it to the gas chamber, what happened? There is a difference in the two levels. There is a difference in the level of mercury in the two arms. H is the difference level. We can measure that difference level using a scale attached to the tube. So from here we get the pressure due to the gas. Okay, pressure due to the gas is equal to P atmospheric plus rho GH. See next, there are two types of liquid flow. One is streamline flow and the other is turbulent flow. What is a streamline flow? When a liquid flows such that each particle of the liquid passing a given point, okay, each particle of the liquid passing a given point moves along the same path and has the same velocity as its predecessor. Okay, so suppose this is the path of a liquid flow, and at A, B, C, okay, at A molecule is having VA velocity, at B it is having VB, and C it is having VC velocity. So one molecule passed like having VA at A, VB at V and VC at C. Every molecule, when it will come to A, it will have this velocity with this direction. At B, this will have VB velocity in this direction. At C, it will have VC velocity in this direction. Okay, so every particle passing through a given point has the same velocity as its predecessor. Okay, as its predecessor. Such a flow is called streamline flow, and this path or the line on which tangent at any point gives the direction of velocity of the fluid, this path is called a streamline. Okay, now no two streamlines can intersect each other, because at that point there will be two direction of velocities, which is not possible. Okay, the crowdedness of the streamline will give us a measure of the velocity at that point. Okay, so this is streamline flow. Next comes turbulent flow. if the fluid velocity is greater than the critical velocity. Okay, there is a certain velocity called critical velocity defined for every liquid. If velocity of liquid is greater than that critical velocity, then the flow becomes zigzag. Okay, that is totally random flow. Totally random flow. Then path on velocity of a liquid particle, both path and velocity will change at any point of the liquid path, and they continuously changing totally in random direction. Such a flow is called turbulent flow. Okay, so when a liquid is flowing like this, it is forming eddies, or like this it is forming curls. This is called turbulent flow, which is having random direction, random velocity at any point. Next is equation of continuity. Now there comes ideal fluid. An ideal fluid is one which is having streamlined flow, steady flow, it is incompressible, and it is having no viscosity. Okay, that is called the ideal fluid. This is applicable to ideal fluid only. See what it is saying. It states that during the streamlined flow of a non-viscous and incompressible fluid, that is, they are talking about ideal fluid, through a pipe of varying cross section. If we have a pipe which is having a varying cross section and there is a streamlined flow of a liquid which is non-viscous as well as incompressible, then the product of cross sectional area and the normal fluid velocity, okay, then the product of area of cross section and normal fluid velocity remains constant. Okay, if we have area of cross section as A1 over here and A2 is the area of cross section over here, fluid is having some velocity V1 at this point, fluid is having some velocity V2 at this point, then equation then equation of continuity says that A1 into V1, product of fluid velocity and area of cross section, that is A into V, this will remain constant. Okay, this will remain constant, or we can say that A1 V1 is equal to A2 V2. Okay, A1 V1 is equal to A2 V2. This is called equation of continuity. It is based on the conservation of mass. Okay, it is based on the conservation of mass. See, next comes different types of energies possessed by any fluid. So fluid can possess kinetic energy, the energy which comes due to its motion. Okay, that is called kinetic energy. Kinetic energy of the fluid is half mv square. If m mass of fluid is having v speed, kinetic energy will be half mv square. If we want to find kinetic energy per unit mass, okay, that is ke by m, then it will be equal to half into mass, and mass will get cancelled, half v square. Kinetic energy per unit volume, okay, that is ke by v. Now it will become mass by volume, that is density. So this will be equal to half rho v square. It will be equal to half rho v square. And if we want to find kinetic energy per unit weight, this is ke by mg. M and m will get cancelled. We will get it as v square by 2g. Okay, v square by 2g. This kinetic energy per unit weight is called velocity head. Okay, this is called velocity head. Kinetic energy per unit weight is called velocity head. Next energy possessed by the fluid is potential energy. So the energy which the fluid gets due to its position above the surface of earth, that is called potential energy. If m mass of fluid is present at a height h, potential energy will be mgh. Okay, if we want to calculate potential energy per unit mass, it will be g into h. If we want to calculate potential energy per unit volume, mass by volume will become density, it will be rho gh. And if we want to calculate potential energy per unit weight, so it will be simply h, and this is called potential head. Okay, this is called this is called potential head. Okay, this is called potential head. See, next, third type of energy is called pressure energy. Any liquid under pressure is capable of doing some work. Okay, suppose like we have a liquid which is having some piston orifice, and there's a piston. Now liquid is filled in this container. It will exert some pressure at this point. What will be the pressure? It will be rho gh. If this orifice is at a height h below the surface, pressure at this point will be P atmospheric plus rho gh. Okay, if it is exposed to atmosphere, here pressure will be P atmospheric. So pressure at this point will be P atmospheric plus rho gh. Due to this pressure, it can displace the piston by some x amount. It is capable of doing work due to this pressure. Okay, it is capable of doing work due to this pressure. So this work done is stored as potential energy. The energy possessed by a fluid by virtue of its pressure is called pressure energy. Now pressure energy is equal to pressure into volume. Okay, pressure energy is equal to pressure into volume. So if we want to find pressure energy per unit mass, it will become pressure PV by M. It will become PV by M. Now mass per unit volume is density, so it will become P by rho. Okay, it will become P by rho. If we want to calculate pressure energy per unit volume, okay, pressure energy per unit volume, this is simply PV by V. So this is equal to V. Okay, pressure energy per unit volume will be PV by V, that is V. Pressure energy per unit weight, that is PV divided by mg. So when we divide mass by volume, this will become P by rho g. This will become P by rho g, and this is called pressure head. Pressure energy per unit weight, this is called pressure head. Okay, this is called pressure head. Let us come to Bernoulli's theorem. Now Bernoulli's theorem states that if we have a streamline flow of an ideal fluid, that is non-viscous and irrotational, having steady streamline flow, irrotational fluid, non-viscous fluid and incompressible fluid, then the sum of pressure energy, kinetic energy and potential energy per unit volume, okay, of an incompressible non-viscous fluid in a streamlined irrotational flow remains constant. That is half rho v square plus rho gh plus p will be constant. Kinetic energy per unit volume, then potential energy per unit volume and pressure energy per unit volume will remain constant. Okay, if we have a pipe of variable cross section such that this cross section is A1 and this cross section is A2. Okay, this cross section is at height of h1 and this cross section is at a height of h2. Velocity of the fluid at this point is v1 and velocity of the fluid at this point is v2. Then what is happening? We will have half rho v1 square plus rho g h1, apply it what 1, this sum of pressure energy, kinetic energy and potential energy per unit volume at 1 will be equal to that at 2 because this is constant. So half rho v1 square plus rho g h1 plus pressure at this point is P1. Okay, pressure at this point is P1 and pressure at this point is P2. Okay, plus P1 is equal to half rho V2 square plus rho g h2 plus P2. Okay, this is Bernoulli's theorem. So it's a very important, you must remember it. Okay, next is the application of Bernoulli's theorem, speed of efflux or Torricelli's law. Now suppose we have a fluid enclosed in a container and the pressure at this upper surface of the fluid is P. Now it is not P atmospheric because it is not exposed to atmosphere. It is a closed container. So the pressure due to all the gases present above the liquid surface is P. Okay. So at P2 pressure is P and at 1 pressure is P atmospheric because this point is exposed to atmosphere. Now see, first we will apply equation of continuity at 1 and 2. So from here we will get this orifice is having area A1. So we will have A1 into V1 is equal to A2 into V2. If we want to calculate V2, that is A1 by A2 into V1. Now see, orifice area is very small as compared to this surface area. Okay, A1 is much smaller than A2. So we take V2 as approximately 0. Okay, V2 will be approximately 0. Now if an orifice is present at a height h below the surface of water, okay, so speed of efflux of fluid coming out of a small orifice at a height h below the liquid surface, okay, orifice is present at a height h below the surface, so speed at this fluid velocity from this orifice will be equal to, V will be equal to under root of 2 by rho into P minus P atmospheric plus 2gh, okay, plus 2gh. Now if container is open, then P will be equal to P atmospheric, P will be equal to P atmospheric minus P atmospheric, it will become 0. So velocity is equal to under root 2gh. Now have you seen this formula? Is it similar somewhere? Yes, it is similar to kinematics. If we drop any body from h height, velocity at height below the surface, below the point of dropping is 2 under root 2gh. So this is called Torricelli's law. Okay, this is called Torricelli's law. Okay, this is Torricelli's law, speed of efflux. It is same as kinematics. So using the same kinematic equation, we can find the time taken, and to come, now fluid will come like this. Okay, fluid will come like this. So time taken to touch the ground and range of the fluid, okay, time taken to touch the ground and range of the fluid, we can measure it using same as kinematics. Okay, same as kinematics. See, next is viscosity. Now what is viscosity? Every fluid layer, when we have a fluid is moving on a surface, so layer of fluid in contact with the surface is having 0 velocity, it is at rest. Okay, so if this is a surface, fluid layer in contact with the surface will have velocity equal to 0. Then there will be a layer above it, a layer above it, a layer above it, and a layer above it, like this. So this layer above it will have some velocity v, other will have a larger velocity, other will have a larger, above it will have a larger, even larger velocity. So velocity is increasing as we move upwards from the surface. What is happening? One layer of fluid is trying to slide over the other layer. Now when we see in friction, when one body tries to move over the other, we find that there is a backward drag force, friction. Similarly, when one fluid layer tries to slide over the other, there is a backward drag force called viscous drag. Okay, so viscosity is the property of fluid by virtue of which an internal force of friction comes into play when a fluid is in motion, and which opposes the relative motion between its different layers. Okay, as friction used to oppose the relative motion between the bodies, it will oppose the relative motion between two different layers. The backward dragging force is called the viscous drag or viscous force, which will act tangentially on the layers in the motion. Okay, so a viscous force F will be acting backwards between the layers like this. This force is called viscous drag. Okay, this is called viscous drag. Now let us find coefficient of viscosity. Suppose we have two layers. one is at a height x and the other is at a height x plus dx. Okay, one fluid layer is at a height x, other is at x plus dx. This layer is having velocity v. As we move upwards, velocity will increase, so this is having velocity v plus dv. This is the surface. Okay, this is the surface. Fluid is moving like this. One layer is at a distance x from the surface having velocity v, other is at x plus dx having velocity v plus dv. Now due to this, a backward drag force will be acting between the layers which will oppose its relative motion. Now this force, we found that experimentally it is proportional to the area of fluid layers, okay, area of the layers, and it is also proportional to the velocity gradient. Okay, velocity gradient, change of velocity with respect to distance. So if we remove the proportionality constant, we get minus eta a into dv by dx. Okay, this proportionality constant is called coefficient of viscosity. This proportionality constant is called coefficient of viscosity. Okay, now why negative sign? Because it is opposite to the direction of motion, relative motion between the layers. So this eta is called coefficient of viscosity. Okay, this eta is called coefficient of viscosity. Now it depends on the nature of the fluid. Okay, it depends on the nature of fluid and it gives us a measure of the viscosity. Okay, it depends on nature of liquid. It gives a measure of viscosity of the liquid. Okay, it gives us a measure of viscosity of the liquid. Okay, so this eta is called coefficient of viscosity. If from here we want to write eta, eta will be force per unit area into dx by dv. So from here we can find its dimension as well as units. Okay, SI unit of eta is Poiseuille or decapoise. Poise is its CGS unit. Okay, so 1 Poiseuille is equal to 1 decapoise. Okay, that is 10 poise. We can say that SI unit is Poiseuille and it is equal to 1 Newton second per meter square. You can get it from it. Now let us move to Poiseuille's formula. What is Poiseuille's formula? The volume of a liquid flowing out per second through a horizontal capillary. If we have a horizontal capillary which is having length L, radius R, and it is under a pressure difference P across its end, then volume of fluid flowing out per second, it is equal to pi P raised to the power 4 by 8 eta L. Okay, this is pi by 8 into P raised to the power 4 divided by P into R raised to the power 4 divided by 8 eta L. This is a volume of fluid flowing per second. Okay, this is the rate of flow. Q is the rate of flow, that is volume per unit time. Okay, volume of liquid flowing per unit second. Now see, in this we assume that the tube is horizontal because there we consider no effect of gravity on the tube. Okay, so tube is taken as horizontal and no effect of gravity is considered. Okay, so this is a volume. It tells us volume rate of flow of any liquid through a capillary. Next comes the Stokes law. Stokes law says that if we have a fluid which is having coefficient of viscosity eta and a small body of radius r, okay, if we have a fluid whose coefficient of viscosity is eta, coefficient of viscosity is eta, and there is a small body of radius r which is moving with speed v inside this fluid. Okay, it is moving with speed v inside this fluid. So the backward viscous force acting on a small spherical body of radius r moving inside a liquid having coefficient of viscosity eta is given by F is equal to 6 pi eta RV. Okay, F is equal to 6 pi eta RV. Now we can derive all these law using dimensional analysis, okay, by checking that viscous drag is dependent on eta R and V, and we can derive it. F is equal to 6 pi eta RV. This is Stokes' law. Now the application of Stokes' law comes as terminal velocity. So when we have a, suppose we drop a spherical body of radius r into a fluid, okay, we dropped a spherical body of radius r into this fluid. Density of the body is sigma and density of the fluid is rho, okay. So initially there will be three forces acting on this body. One is its weight acting downwards, other will be the buoyant force acting upwards, and the other will be the viscous drag acting upwards, okay. Three forces will be acting on this body. Now we know that viscous drag, this will be equal to 6 pi eta RV. Weight and buoyant force both are constant. Initially velocity is less, so what we were having is that mg is greater than fb plus fv. As velocity increases, okay, as velocity increases, fv will increase. So a time will come when we have fb plus fv is equal to mg. At this point net force will become 0 and body will attain a constant velocity, okay. Net force will become 0, F net will become 0 and body will attain a constant velocity. This maximum constant velocity, see, initially mg is greater than fb plus fb, so there is a net downward force acting, so velocity will increase, okay, velocity will increase. As velocity increases, fv increases. So what will happen? fb plus fv is increasing, but still it is less than mg, so velocity will keep on increasing. Velocity keeps on increasing, fv keeps on increasing. At time will come when both of the sum of both the two will be equal to mg, net force becomes 0 and velocity will become constant. So this maximum constant velocity acquired by the body while falling through a viscous medium is called terminal velocity, okay. This is called terminal velocity and it is given by 2 by 9 into sigma minus rho r square g by eta, okay. So terminal velocity is directly proportional to, terminal velocity is directly proportional to the difference between their densities. It is directly proportional to the square of the radius of the ball or any body, and it is inversely proportional to eta, okay. It is inversely proportional to eta. An application of this terminal velocity in real life is that when rain comes from clouds to us, before coming to us it attains its terminal velocity. That's why they don't hit us with such larger speeds. Next comes the critical velocity. So critical velocity of a liquid is that limiting value above which the flow of the liquid becomes turbulent. If velocity is less than the critical velocity, okay, let us write it as Vc. So if velocity is less than the critical velocity, if velocity is less than the critical velocity, then flow is streamlined, okay, then the flow is streamlined. If velocity is greater than the critical velocity, then the flow is turbulent, okay, then the flow is turbulent. And critical velocity is equal to k into eta by rho d. K is any dimensionless constant. Critical velocity is directly proportional to eta, it is inversely proportional to rho, and it is also inversely proportional to the diameter of the pipe, okay. It is inversely proportional to rho and also inversely proportional to the diameter of pipe. To have streamlined flow, we want that critical velocity should be large, so that at larger velocities we should have streamlined flow. If Vc should be large, then eta should be large, okay. Vc should be large. Okay, to have streamline flow, VC should be large, so that at higher velocities also sorry, the flow remains streamlined but doesn't lose its property. VC should be large, that is eta should be large, density should be less, and D should be less. Okay, so what kind of fluid will remain streamlined at higher velocities? Which is having high viscosity and low density. Okay, high viscosity and low density. Then there is another parameter, Reynolds number, which also tells us the flow of any liquid. So it is a dimensionless parameter. Very important point. Reynolds numbers is just a number. It doesn't have any dimensions. It is a dimensionless parameter which decides the nature of flow of a liquid through a pipe. Okay. Now Reynolds number is equal to rho Vd by eta. Okay, rho Vd by eta. If Reynolds number range lies between 0 to 2000, then the flow is streamlined. Okay, then the flow is streamlined. If if Reynolds number is between 2000 to 3000, then the flow is unstable. Okay, it is unstable flow. It can be streamlined, it can be turbulent as well. If Reynolds number is greater than 3000, okay, sorry, if I think I put an opposite sign. Yes, if Reynolds number is between 0 to 2000, that is greater than 0 and less than 2000, and 0 to 3000. If Reynolds number is greater than 3000, then the flow is turbulent. Okay, then the flow is turbulent. Now see, Reynolds number of any liquid, it is directly proportional to density, it is directly proportional to velocity, directly proportional to diameter of the tube, and inversely proportional to eta. Reynolds number should be less to have streamline flow. For streamline flow, RE should be less. Okay, RE should be less. If RE is, Reynolds number should be less. If RE is less, then eta should be large and density should be less. See the same case, density should be less and eta should be large. High viscosity, low density. Okay, high viscosity, low density. Now next comes cohesive and adhesive forces. The forces which act between the molecules of the same substance are called cohesive forces. Example is strong cohesive forces between solids, strong cohesive forces between the molecules of solid. Okay, next is adhesive force. The force of attraction between molecules of two different substances is called adhesive force. Example of adhesive forces, water sticks to the container, water can wet the container. Okay, that is an adhesive force, okay, between the molecules of two different substances. Next is surface tension. Now what is surface tension? If we have a liquid in a container, okay, if we have a liquid in a container, then the liquids, then the molecule which is in interior, okay, it is having equal force from all sides. So net force on this molecule is 0. Okay, net force on this molecule is 0. If we take a molecule over here, okay, upward force is less but downward forces are large, so it will have a net downward force. Okay, it will have a net downward force. Similarly, if we take the molecule over the surface, it is having maximum downward force. So this layer is called surface film, which is having thickness equal to the molecular range. Molecular range is the distance up to which a molecule can exert force of attraction on other molecules. Okay, so due to this property that they are having net downward force, their potential energy will be high. Okay, potential energy of molecules in surface film, potential energy of molecules in surface film is large than the one larger than the ones in interior. Okay, so this molecule is having less potential energy, they are having more potential energy. If they are having more potential energy of the system will increase. Every system tries to minimize its potential energy. So to minimize the potential energy of this liquid, number of molecules in the surface film should be minimum. Okay, number of molecules in the surface film should be minimum, that is surface area of the film should be minimum. Okay, so to minimize potential energy, that is to become stable, surface area should be minimum. Okay, surface area should be minimum. Okay, if surface area is to be minimum, this property of the fluid by which the free surface of a liquid behaves like an elastic stretched membrane tending to contract so as to occupy minimum surface area, this is called surface tension. Okay, this is called surface tension. This is a property of the liquid by which it tries to minimize its surface area. This is called surface tension. See, liquid drops are circular in shape so as to have minimum surface area. This property that the free surface behaves like a stretched membrane is called surface tension. Now we can find surface tension by, suppose we have a container which is containing any liquid. Okay, so we can write surface tension as the force per unit length. Okay, so what we have is, suppose we have a liquid. Okay, this is the free surface of any liquid, and consider an imaginary line on this liquid. Okay, consider an imaginary line on this liquid. This line is attracted by a force. Okay, this line is attracted, imaginary line on this liquid. All the molecules which are present on this line, these are attracted by the other molecules. They will have some force due to surface tension because they want to minimize its surface area, so it behaves like a stretched membrane. So there is a force on each molecule due to surface tension. So that force divided by length, we can find it as surface tension. So T is equal to F by L. If you want to find its SI unit, its SI unit will be Newton per meter. Okay, SI unit of surface tension will be Newton per meter. Now let us come to surface energy. Now the molecules in the surface film possess extra energy. So the extra energy possessed by the molecules of surface film per unit area, okay, of unit area, that is per unit area, as compared to the ones which are in interior, is called surface energy. Or in other words, we can say that if we have a film, okay, if we have a film of any soap solution or frame, we dipped it in a soap solution, then we'll have a film on it. If you want to increase the area of any film, okay, if you want to increase the area of that film, then surface tension is trying to minimize the area. You want to increase the area, you have to apply some force. So the work done per unit increase in area is given as surface energy. Okay, it is equal to work done in increasing the area of the surface by unit amount is called surface energy. Okay, so surface energy is equal to work done divided by per unit increase in area. Work done per unit increase in area, that is W by delta A. W by delta A, this is surface energy. Surface energy of any liquid is numerically equal to its surface tension. We can prove this, that surface energy is numerically equal to surface tension. Why they have written numerically equal? Because it is only equal in magnitude, not in dimensions. Surface, if you want to find the SI unit of surface energy, what its SI unit will be? Yes, just check once. Its unit will be joule per meter square. Okay, unit will be joule per meter square, and surface energy will be numerically equal to its surface tension. Surface tension. You should remember this. This is very important, that surface energy is numerically equal to surface tension of the liquid. Now next comes is excess pressure when we have any curved surface of a liquid. Okay, when we have any curved surface of a liquid, pressure on the concave side is larger. Okay, so if we have pressure here P1, pressure here is a P2, so pressure on, this is a curved liquid surface, curved liquid surface. Liquid can be on any side, you can have it on this side also or this side also. Vapor, this can be liquid vapor phase or vapor liquid phase, both, for both the case it will be same. This is a curved surface of a liquid, so pressure on the concave side, pressure on the concave side is greater than the pressure on the convex side. Okay, is greater than the pressure on the convex side of liquid. Okay, pressure on concave side of the liquid is greater than the pressure on the convex side. This is convex side, P2 will be less, P1 will be more. Okay, P2 will be less, P1 will be more. So due to this, what is a liquid drop? When we have a liquid drop of radius r, okay, we have a liquid drop of radius r. See, this is the concave side, so pressure inside is greater than pressure outside. Okay, pressure inside is greater than pressure outside. The amount by which inside pressure is greater than the outside pressure is called excess pressure. So excess pressure in a liquid drop of radius r, if T is the surface tension of the liquid, then P will be equal to 2T by R, and similarly if we have a bubble of radius r and T is the surface tension of the liquid, then excess pressure will be 4T by R. Okay, excess pressure will be 4T by R. This is the excess pressure in a liquid drop, and this is the excess pressure in a bubble. Bubble is having twice the excess pressure because it has two free surfaces. So increase in area will be double. Now next come meniscus, shape of the meniscus, angle of contact. What is angle of contact? Angle of contact is the angle between the tangent to the liquid surface at the point of contact and the solid surface inside the liquid. Okay, suppose we have a container like this and a meniscus like this is formed. Okay, and a meniscus like this is formed. So tangent to the liquid surface at the point of contact, this is my point of contact, this is tangent to the liquid surface at the point of contact, and the next is the solid surface inside the liquid, solid surface inside the liquid. This angle theta is called angle of contact. The angle between these two is called angle of contact. Okay, angle between these two is called angle of contact. Now we have different types of meniscus forms. Okay, we have different types of meniscus. One is concave meniscus and the other is convex meniscus. If adhesive forces are greater than cohesive forces, okay, if adhesive forces are greater than cohesive forces, that is force between the liquid and the surface. Okay, force between the liquid and surface is larger, between the solid and the liquid molecules will have greater force, adhesive is greater than cohesive, then this force is greater, adhesive, it will try to stick to the surface of container, okay, it will try to wet the container. So angle of contact is an acute angle, okay. So theta is less than 90 degree, acute angle, and the meniscus formed will be a concave meniscus, okay. Meniscus formed will be a concave meniscus. Meniscus will be a concave meniscus. Example is glass and water. Example is glass and water. Okay. Next is, if adhesive force is smaller than cohesive force, okay. Adhesive force is smaller than cohesive force. It will not try to stick to the container, it will not try to wet the container, it will try to contract itself, okay. It will try to contract itself, so like this. It will not try to stick to the container, meniscus formed will be like this. Now draw the tangent to the liquid surface at the point of contact. This is the tangent and this is the surface. This is angle of contact. Theta is greater than 90 degree, obtuse angle, okay. Angle of contact will be an obtuse angle. We will have convex meniscus. And example is mercury and glass. Example is mercury and glass. Last case is, if the cohesive force is equal to adhesive force, okay. If the cohesive force is equal to adhesive force, then neither it will try to stick to the container nor it will try to contract. Angle of contact will be 90 degree, okay. Angle of contact will be 90 degree. Theta will be 90 degree. We will have plane surface. Example is silver container and pure water, okay. Pure water in silver container, then the meniscus is a plane surface, okay. Plane meniscus, better word is light meniscus. We will have plane meniscus and angle of contact is 90 degree, okay. So angle of contact depends on nature of the solid and liquid in contact, cleanliness of the surface in contact, okay. Impurities will change it. Medium above the free surface of the liquid, which medium is present above the free surface of the liquid, and also to the temperature of the liquid, okay. Also depends on the temperature of the liquid. Next is capillarity. What is capillarity? Suppose we were having a liquid in a container, okay. Suppose we were having any liquid in a container and we took a capillary and placed in this container, okay. We took a capillary and placed in this container. The liquid will rise in this capillary to a height h above the surface in the container, okay. To a height h above the liquid surface in the container. This action is called capillarity, okay. The phenomena of rise or fall, it could fall also depending upon the liquids and the container, depending on the angle of contact, okay. If you take water, it will rise. If you take mercury, it will fall, okay. So the phenomena of rise or fall of a liquid in a capillary tube in comparison to the surroundings, this is called capillarity. So let us take that angle of contact is an acute angle, okay. Angle of contact is an acute angle. Meniscus is a concave meniscus. We dip the capillary, radius of capillary is r. Radius of capillary is small r, okay. So small r is the radius of capillary, theta is the angle of contact. Okay, theta is the angle of contact. Now see, if we take a broad view of this, this is the angle of contact theta, this is the shape of the meniscus, so this is my angle of contact. This is small r is the radius of capillary. This small r is the radius of capillary, and this capital R is the radius of meniscus. This capital R is the radius of meniscus. Okay, capital R is the radius of meniscus. Okay, T is my surface tension of the liquid and it rose to a height h. Then the height h is given by 2t cos theta divided by r rho g. Okay, this height up to which the liquid will rise in the capillary of radius r, it is equal to 2t cos theta by r rho g. Okay, this is very important. It is equal to 2t cos theta by r rho g. R is the radius of capillary, not the radius of meniscus. Now why it rises? Let us talk about this. Suppose here pressure is P atmospheric. Pressure just above the liquid surface will be P atmospheric, and this pressure, let us take it as P1. Now P1 will be less than P atmospheric because pressure on convex side is less. Okay, P1 is less than P atmospheric. By how much amount? See, consider it as a circle, consider it as a liquid drop. So P1 minus P atmospheric, excess pressure on the above side, will be equal to 2t by r. Okay, that will be equal to 2t by r. Here r will be the radius of meniscus, 2t by r, because radius of meniscus, liquid drop radius, no, so radius of meniscus. Now here pressure is P atmospheric, so here should also pressure should be P atmospheric. If this pressure is less than P atmospheric, then there should be a liquid column above it to compensate it. Okay, there should be a liquid column above it to make. P1 is less than P atmospheric, so P1 plus this height, pressure due to this h height of liquid column must be equal to P atmospheric. That's why liquid rises to some h level, so that pressure at every point is same. Okay, so that pressure at every point is same. P1 is less than P atmospheric, sorry, PA minus P1. Okay, above side is greater. PA1 is less than P atmospheric by amount 2t by r. So this rho GH, this pressure due to this liquid column, rho GH, okay, pressure due to this liquid column must be equal to, rho GH must be equal to excess pressure, so that pressure here becomes P atmospheric. And by this triangle we can take r, small r is equal to r cos theta. Okay, small r will be equal to r cos theta. Substituting it as r cos theta, we will get the h height as 2t cos theta by r rho g. Okay, 2t cos theta by r rho g. If you let us take cos theta will be base by hypotenuse. Okay, cos theta will be base by hypotenuse, so small r will be r cos theta. Substitute the value of capital R as small r by cos theta, we will get 2t cos theta by r rho g. This is the h height up to which capillary liquid in the capillary will rise, and this formula is also called ascent formula. This formula is also called ascent formula. Okay, so this is all about the chapter mechanical properties of fluids. I hope you enjoyed this session and it was a good revision session for you. Keep studying, keep rocking and keep shining. Take care. Goodbye.